The CX Pod is brought to you by Netigate. Netigate helps you put your customers at the center of your business. Check them out at netigate.net.
Welcome to the CX Pod, where we aim to expand people's perception of customer experience management. We know that customer experience goes hand in hand with employee experience, and we believe that a broader and more holistic view might even replace terms like CX and EX with people experience or human experience.
Hello and welcome back everyone to the CX Pod. This is Merete and Joanna is here with me. Hello, Joanna.
Hello, Merete, and hello, everybody who's listening again to the CX Pod. I say again, I just want to take a moment to mention that we've been going for over 2 years now, Merete.
We have. It's like a slight anniversary-ish episode, could we say?
I think we could do this as a anniversary episode, absolutely.
Yeah, we should. And the perfect thing to round it off, because this is also going to be our season finale for this. I think it's the third season of the CX Pod, and we have here with us today Esa Nettamo. Welcome.
Thank you.
All the way from Finland through our digital channel.
Yeah.
And I'm so excited to have you on the pod because we've actually done this once before where the tables were turned. So we'll let you talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But you hosted a Journey Ops event here in Oslo a few weeks, maybe even months ago, where John and I participated as panelists initially, but it ended up actually you turning the tables on us and being our podcast host for the occasion. So it's really great to have you here, and I'm happy that we're going to be able to pick your brain this time. And also, I think it's really exciting to have such a profile like you as our final guest for the season, rounding off 2024. It's been a fantastic year for us. Like Joanna said, we've been going 2 years. We started off as a little hobby podcast in Norwegian, recording with bad sound and awful quality. And now here we are aiming to be international.
With bad sound and awful quality. No, I'm only kidding.
Yeah, thank you. We actually did have some sound issues to begin with today, but luckily we solved them. But yeah, Esa, thank you so much and welcome. I'm just going to dive right into the first question and ask, who is Esa and what brought you here to the CX Pod today?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for being the guest today. It was so much fun to interview you too on stage, and I think the audience also liked that. And I think it was really valuable to hear your opinions on the questions that you are grilling all your guests, and I'm gonna be the one gonna be grilled today. So my name is Esa Nettamo. I have a background in design. Started in 2000, right after the millennium, working for Nokia doing mobile phones. Worked there as first started as a user interface designer. Worked on the the first Symbian phones, and then over time transferred into more customer research. I must say that I've been really fortunate over my whole career because I have had the places that I have worked with. They have been really good as a way teaching me new skills and giving me a lot of liberty on pushing the boundaries, and most of the times not even having the skills to do the work, but still having the opportunity to do that. And Nokia especially was one of those. Because it was growing so fast that they had to recruit people quite fast, and they had to train the people as well. And they were all the time new opportunities to stretch your skills. So I started as a user interface designer. Then I moved on to more doing customer research, got to travel around the world doing quality research. And that, I think for designers, that's I think every single designer should do customer research at some point of their career. Preferably throughout the career, but at least at some point, really spend time on observing how people actually use the services that you are designing, and because it gives you much more perspective. And after and then maybe after 11 years at Nokia, it's the whole Nokia story started to fade away, and I decided to move on. And I was looking on where do I want to go next? I was considering a couple agencies, but then I started to think that Nokia, what we struggled with was that we work with the biggest design agencies in the world, And the problem that we had with them was that because they were pure design agencies, they weren't really able to understand that how do we actually deliver solutions to the market with the technology that we had in place.
Yeah.
And then I decided that, okay, I don't want to be part of this problem, creating PowerPoints, which never either which the customers never actually see. So that's why I actually decided to go to work for a company called Ixanos, which had like 1,300 software engineers. And I was one of the few designers who joined to start kind of the transformation from pure software into more as kind of creating like end-to-end services. And that year, like first couple years, I must say that the culture wasn't really design culture, but it was like probably the best like few years that I have had in my career, because we built the team from scratch. So we kind of handpicked every single person to the team. And if you ever have a chance to do that, if you ever are offered the opportunity to go somewhere to build a team from scratch, I really recommend that, because it's such a rewarding task that you can have, because then you build a team that feels more like a family in a way. Every piece kind of fits to the puzzle, and everybody starts roughly at the same time, so there's kind of honeymoon period as well. So it's really fun to work with in that kind of setting. Over the years, I spent like 13 years in that company. We changed the name towards the end as well. We acquired quite a lot of different companies, different smaller design agencies, and had to go through the kind of whole integration process, which I must say that it's really difficult. If you are ever working in a company where they acquire a new company, and then when you start merging those two different kind of cultures and there's the different kind of dynamics, it's sort of just quite political as well. It's not that much fun, to be honest. And it kind of changes. Like I lost from the first team, I lost 10 persons from the 20-person team during the first year when we acquired our first company. Over time, I kind of transferred into more in a leadership role. So if I first went there to build the design team, then I started to take over the kind of the global design function. We had the studios in North America, in Asia, and then in Europe. So I was running the kind of the design operation for that part, and that was quite much fun. We work with global clients, so it's quite inspiring to work with those in that kind of setting, and I learned a lot from the international talent that we got, and also the ability to work with like in Asia with like that kind of culture. It's also quite a big learning experience. But again, 13 years went, and then I started to think that, okay, I've been always dreaming about moving as an doing entrepreneurship. I never had the chance to do that, or never had the courage to do that. And then I had a really good opportunity to actually give it a try. Last couple of years in the previous company had been quite much fixated on customer journey management. Because what I realized that if I joined the company first, because they had the 1,300 engineers, and I didn't want to kind of just deliver PowerPoints, but over the time we actually transformed more in kind of strategic agency, and we were doing a lot of kind of CX strategy and CX vision work. And then I had this awakening that, hang on a second, I'm again doing just PowerPoint, and I realized that the companies that we've been helping, so-called helping, they weren't really succeeding with the kind of the strategies and the visions that we kind of work together with them. So I realized that it's not so much about the problem of kind of knowing where to go, but it's the how do you transform the organization so that they actually help you to get there. And that's where like journey management kind of came into the picture. And now, beginning of this year, I started my own company. It's a very small company, but it focuses purely on customer journey management. So I kind of gave away all the other stuff that I did in the previous role and just focus now on this one. And that's how we met with you two as well. We organized the Journey Ops event in Oslo, which is it's our Journey Ops is our attempt to kind of help the Nordics to get a hang of the whole journey management like what is the potential of it, and then we have consulting practice where we then help the kind of companies to get started and succeed with it. But yeah, that's
yeah. You've taken quite a journey, but at the same time, your journey has been towards, what should I say, it's been filling your backpack with all the goods that you needed to progress or to start the role as an entrepreneur within customer journey management. So it's so exciting to hear your background. Our next question, first of all, Esa, it's really great to see you again, by the way. Sorry, I just wanted to say that. And thank you so much for last time. It was such fun having the tables turned on us. And you were a great podcast host. So thank you for
We should probably
doing
switch
that.
the tables again today, but hey, now we're going, so we should continue.
Yeah. And I was going to say our next question is, so what could you tell us what your field of expertise is? But I feel you've packed so much of that into what you've told us along the way. My take is that your field of expertise today is customer journey management, but of course with the service design, the research and all of this alongside. So I'm intrigued to hear, and you've also worked with CX strategy and vision and in a global perspective, many cultures. How would you define customer experience in your own words?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I think there's so many different ways to kind of define it. I had it like in the Oslo event, I don't remember who I was talking with, where we had a really insightful discussion about like how the word customer experience is interpreted in different ways in different locations. Like some still think about that it's about customer service, which is a limited scope of the kind of whole customer experience. For me, what customer experience means is the first, if you start with the word of customer, so it starts when you actually start to have the kind of relationship with the brand, and it kind of includes all the kind of interactions and experiences that you have had with the brand up to the point when you are asking what is the customer experience. So it's a sum of all the interactions that you have across the different channels. But I think it starts with the phase when you really start to become a customer. And I've been thinking about that because like in a previous company, one of the agencies that we bought was a brand strategy agency. And we had a really kind of insightful discussions about what's the difference between brand experience and customer experience. And somebody said it quite well, was that the brand experience starts before you actually are a customer. We all have a brand experience of even of the brands that we are not really even customers of or ever going to be a customer of. We have a perception of what that brand stands for. It kind of has a certain kind of role in our kind of mental model. Whereas the customer experience starts really when you are actually a customer of that brand and you are using their services and so on. Of course, the kind of like the gray area is the whole awareness, interest phase in the kind of customer journey, which where you're still not officially customer, but we still call that as a kind of customer experience.
Yeah. Because I guess that's what in the awareness phase, that's when I always fall back to the jobs to be done. But that's, of course, when you're trying to validate or understand whether, or more the evaluation phase, whether the company would be a good fit, will help you solve your problems. And then
and you're still a customer, right? You're just not a paying customer yet, but hopefully, the company's aim is for you to become one. But you're still, like if we talk about internal customers as well, when you're working as a CX consultant, it's the same. You are marketing's customer, although you're not paying anything at the moment. So potato.
It's a gray zone.
I think it's still like what you said, Joanna, the kind of jobs to be done is a good kind of way to kind of look at it, is that you have a certain jobs to be done and then you are like evaluating which are the solutions or providers that can actually fulfill your jobs to be done in the awareness phase.
Yeah, and then it's the idea of how to get it done, and then it's actually getting it done. That's the difference between marketing and being an actual customer, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. And I think, a few of the discussions that you were referring to there were with us, because I remember this question very well from the Jenny Ops event. And when we talked about how, at least I see CX as the big umbrella. And I think the umbrella only gets bigger and bigger every time we talk about this, because we realize that so many things, and that doesn't mean as much as the umbrella grows bigger, it doesn't mean that one department, like the CX department, should be responsible or own the mandate for everyone else. So we're not talking, it's not a power game, this, right? It's not about, oh, so I'm customer experience. That's not why we're trying to define it like this. It's more to create that holistic sort of impression of how does everything we do affect the customers and their ability to get their jobs done, really. So I think, again, it's a big question, and it can be answered from so many angles. But I do love that I never get tired of this question, because there's always a different approach to it. And also, defining on the industry that you are from, you will define what customer experience is quite differently from, somebody from telco would definitely describe it differently than somebody from retail. So it's an interesting question. While talking about that and talking about what customer experience is, and then I basically touched a little bit upon it as well. So if, my opinion, just because I'm the CX person, it doesn't mean I should own the responsibility for the whole customer experience. So who should own it, do you think? And he's smiling now. Funny question.
I think it depends on the context and the maturity of the company quite a lot. Like the easy answer, of course, is that the CEO should own the kind of customer experience. And in some cases, I think it is the right answer. And of course, the CEO needs to be at least a sponsor, because that person is the only one who can actually ensure that things happen. And then if you don't have the kind of executive sponsorship, you might actually, when you're trying to progress with the CX initiatives, you might hit the wall, and you can't actually make the transformation that is needed if you don't have the kind of executive team support. But why I say this like contextual, and why does it depend on the maturity? So it depends on like what kind of company you are. So if you are, let's say that you haven't been really customer centric in the past, and you have a new kind of direction, new strategy that states that, okay, we want to become kind of customer centric, or the kind of customer experience is really important for us, and we want to kind of emphasize. And funny enough, it seems that like it feels that pretty much all the companies have these statements in their strategy, whereas very few actually follow through with this. And I think part of it is about because they don't have the clear sense of ownership. Who owns this this part of the strategy? But it is something that is almost like a checkpoint. And I think you had the kind of good term you talked about, the kind of CX washing. So I think it starts from the having the strategy and not nominating somebody who has the mandate to really kind of push that through. So, but in a company that is making that transformation, that they say that, okay, we want to be customer centric, then it's like utmost important that it's the kind of the CEO that actually stands behind that and makes sure that that strategic initiative gets executed. Of course, that CEO is not going to be the frontline person who's going to actually do all the things that happens, but they need to kind of mandate, and they need to measure that, and they then follow through that strategic initiative. Then if you go to like in last service design, the global conference, which was in Helsinki this year, there's a really good presentation from Nina Hirvonen from OP Bank in Finland, where she was talking about the kind of design maturity, and they were talking about their kind of maturity model, like how they are using and where they are at the moment on it. And they are like to the extreme. So they have stepped, if you have seen the kind of the design maturity four-step model, they have like surpassed the fourth step, and they implemented the fifth one, which is the different next step. So in their case, when they're like extremely mature, the CEO doesn't anymore have to own the kind of the customer experience. Then it's like ingrained in their culture. So it's not something that you need to kind of constantly be pushing. It's more like embedded in the way they behave. So it's different in different companies.
Yeah, I would fully agree with you. And I mean, a lot of work that I do also is at very different ends. You've got the global kind of companies, and then you've got the in the Nordics, we've got, what is it, about 90%, 80-90% of small, medium businesses, and actually having a customer experience manager is just not, it's just not viable. So of course, they need to also find a way of, okay, how do we do the mandate or who should own the customer experience.
And I find, lately I've just been reflecting a lot about how customer experience and the responsibility to make sure that you have some sort of integrity in your work when it comes to how you deal with your customers, right? And it's quite closely tied up to quality and assurance, because it's about the quality processes, right? I find that it's so hard because quality and assurance is in a lot of ways, it's very political in an organization. It's about fixed routines, and it's about sort of routine descriptions, and nobody really follows them, but we just have them in case there should be an audit, right? And that's not agile the way we want customer experience to be handled. So there's some friction there that I haven't really been speaking loudly about this. It's just sort of been going on in my head, but we need to find that way of ensuring that our processes are also, because you can define whoever you want in an organization to be responsible for the customer experience, and it can be the CEO, or it could be the CX manager, or it could even be a rep at customer service. But the thing is, if the people who are meeting and dealing and making decisions on behalf of the customers every day don't feel that it is in their job description to be human, as John Sills says, they're not going to be it. Because if you have a CEO who says that customer experience is important to us, but they don't follow up by doing the measurements or asking the questions, or trying to verify that, are we being customer centric now, or is it just something we say?
Yeah.
So you're so back to the CX washing. It's so easy to see and to spot the companies who are doing it to look good and doing it because they actually mean it, and the company who actually mean it, you will feel it in the whole culture, and there you will have the quality and assurance hand in hand with customer experience, because the routines are created to be able to enable a good customer experience. So
Absolutely.
I'm glad I could get that off my chest.
Yeah, and actually it's really interesting that you brought up that, Merete, about the quality assurance, because I know that we've recently both been judging on the International Customer Experience Awards, and something that I've noticed lately when judging on these awards is that when they present their customer experience teams, there is somebody that has the role quality and assurance within the CX function. And I have to admit that many of these companies are coming from the Middle East, from other areas of Europe. It's not something that I'm that familiar with within the Nordics. I mean, Esther, have you seen much of that happening in the Nordics?
No, I haven't really.
And I think, and I like that you, so, I mean, the cases that I was judging as well, they didn't really have a Q&A person, but what I did see and what I do find is that in the Middle East, just to use that as an example, it seems, and you were talking about it earlier as well, Asa, that it's not about the PowerPoints, it's about how you operationalize it, right? How you actually manage the journey. So they have sort of understood, they switched sort of the roles around. They start by operationalizing just anything, something, and then they do the systemizing and the PowerPoints afterwards. You know what I mean? So it's like their approach is backwards, but it makes a lot more sense in a way. But because we're trying so hard to commercialize and everything, we just so deeply want to talk about things first and then do it. But I think, in so many examples that we've seen, customer experience gone well or bad, the ones who start by trying and failing and then start documenting the process, those are the ones who are actually the leading stars in this. We're totally tracking off now, but I think it's really interesting to...
But I still continue on that. I think there's because a lot of my audience who I talk to on a day-to-day basis, they work in a CX team. And there's a lot of frustration there. What they are really struggling with is that they have been given the responsibility, but they don't have the the power to actually make the difference. And at the same time, in the strategy, because I always ask, what does your strategy say about this thing? In a strategy, they do have these statements that they gives the the mandate, but still it's handed over to the CX team, but they are one of the silos next to the other silos, and it's impossible to transform the company from parallel silos. And I'm not saying that they should be the CX guards who can come and just dictate things, but something needs to change. And that's why I'm quite focused on the journey management, because that is in a way operationalizing the connected CX strategy.
And I want to get back to that too, because I have two sort of questions that I want to ask now. And the first is just for everyone listening now. So this is the CX pod, and this is why we keep using the term customer experience. And every now and again we dive into the human experience sort of or human centric way of thinking, right? But just for everyone listening, because obviously you talk a lot about journey management. So can you just sort of define the difference for everyone, like the hard difference between the customer journey management and the customer experience in general? Again, in your own words.
Yeah. So if customer experience, like every company has a customer experience. It can be good or it can be bad. And then like many of the companies have the kind of vision that we want to get there here. So they have the kind of the CX vision. And there's been attempts to kind of create these kind of CX programs to take you from today's pain points to tomorrow's promised land. Where they have been always failing is that they try to do it from one silo, and then they don't really think about, okay, we need to change the way the company behaves and operates. So what customer journey management does is that it addresses it has two sides of the coin. So it's the customer experience side of it, trying to kind of like using the customer journeys to like really create seamless experiences, so remove all the friction points and remove the effect of the silos that the customers don't see that. But I think the bigger impact is internal, because what it does is that it adds the customer journey layer on top of the silos. It nominates a person who kind of owns the journey experience, and that person's role is to kind of orchestrate the work that happens within the silos, like being the kind of person who brings the customer perspective that, hey, did you know that in this touch point that you are working on, the previous touch points are actually these, and the people who are work on this journey, they struggle with these things in the previous ones. So they bring a lot of the kind of knowledge there. And so a lot of the kind of what the custom journey management is it is about making things accessible for the kind of organization. Silos are not a bad thing, but they just cause this unfortunate effect that it's difficult for people to collaborate across. And then what it also affects is that if customer centricity is a lot about like how do you make decisions, do you take into consideration the customer value creation in those decisions? So customer journey management processes make sure that when you're actually prioritizing the things that you want to do next, that you do consider that, like, what is the customer value that we're actually creating? What is the business value that we are creating here? So in essence, if you use customer journey management, you end up choosing the highest value opportunities that you then act on.
I love that. That is so beautifully put. The pieces were just sort of falling into place in my head when you started talking now. And this also leads me to the second question. I'm sorry, John, I'm just sort of railing off today.
Fire away.
But we touched upon it a little bit in the last episode as well. But, you know, when it comes to being the driver or the responsible for the customer journey management, or even sort of ensuring that the customer experience is being thought of in one way or another, you know, the skill set that it requires for these people. We were talking about how I bursted into a meeting being the shitty sort of sour, because I just had it, right? My patience was out.
Yeah.
I was done by us creating, you know, because we were creating horrible customer experiences. And then, you know, the realization that I should be thinking about the customer experience that I provide for my customers, because they're not going to be willing to improve their customer experience if the way I ask them to is, what are you, idiots? Like, right? Yeah. So do you focus on that as well in your work? Because I think that's really interesting how, you know, you need to practice what you preach, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is. So the question is like, who can be the kind of customer journey manager or customer journey owner? What kind of role is it? There isn't like a existing role that is like ready for that immediately. Like there are like different roles where you can kind of transform into this role. But it's not an easy role, because you need to understand the kind of customer, but you need to also understand the business perspective. and to be able to kind of work with the tech teams to kind of understand what they are planning and affect their planning. You need to also, on a certain level, you need to understand the kind of technical limitations and possibilities as well. So it is this kind of triangle Venn diagram where all these skills can overlap. And I've been trying to do with like few companies that we start training from one role to this one, and product owner is quite often the role that is being thrown out. That okay, product owners already in a way they have the kind of responsibility, similar kind of responsibility,
Yes.
but focus on the product. And now it's fairly easy kind of leverage that to cover the whole journey. And I think there is a lot of possibilities there because they do have, if you go by the book, what product owner definition is, then you have these kind of skills. Then it's just more on like widening your lens. And of course, all the kind of customer experience people also have the kind of perspective. But what I try to do is that I try to advocate that don't nominate customer experience people or design people for these customer journey owner roles. The reason might not be that obvious. It's not because they are not capable of doing that, but it's more on that if you really want to transform the company, you need to get this integrated into the whole organization. So if it's only the design or customer experience people who do this, then you're not gonna make it. And actually the biggest problem from the big organizations that I have interviewed who have been doing this for many years is that it kind of starts in design or CX and it kind of dies there as well. It never breaches the kind of borders. So it's just living in that one silo, the whole customer.
Yeah, and I have to back you 100% there, Esa, because I experience exactly the same, that I'm seeing a trend towards that it's a product owner or a solution owner who is taking on the role of sort of the customer journey management. But when it comes to attributes, I think one of the key attributes is being great at facilitation.
Yeah.
Because it's an extremely facilitating role that, as you mentioned about the silos, it's not about so much breaking down the silos, but it's about getting silos to facilitate that they work together and can work cross-functionally.
Yeah. And it's also about like what kind of role you have in a company, not in terms of like your job title, but like, are you the influencer in your organization?
Yes. Yeah.
Who can just go behind the scenes and influence things. I think the journey over really needs to they need to be really good at like facilitating, collaborating, and explaining because it's not going to be a kind of mandate where you can just go and dictate, nor should it be. It needs to be kind of quite a humble approach.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Interesting.
Should we go back to the questions?
Yeah, but I was just thinking about the same. Take us back, Joanna, please.
Yeah, I'm going to take you back. I feel that we've touched on a few of the questions of what's capturing our attention.
This is Joanna making the CX pod great again, by the way. I couldn't help myself.
But I'm thinking, and we've talked about challenges as well, but I think we should dig a little bit more into that, because what do you see, Esa, in the work that you're doing? What is the greatest challenges that companies are facing today when it comes to being customer centric?
Well, first understanding what it means. And we walked through this in the Oslo event. The Forrester just released this kind of study on the kind of the quality of customer experience. Within that study, there was like one statistics which said that only 3% of the kind of companies can be classified as customer centric. But at the same time, if you look at the kind of business results, they are like overwhelmingly positive results. So it's fairly easy to decision that okay, customer centricity is a good business strategy, but the companies struggle to understand what does it really mean? What do we need to do? Quite often they think that it's somebody's role in our company to make us customer centric, where they go of course wrong in that sense. But then if you go a bit deeper, I think what has been surprising to me is that one of the challenges that companies have is that they don't have one way of understanding who our customer is. Like if you ask that, can you show your kind of personas or segmentation models? There's a whole bunch of different kind of models. Sometimes you create personas for a project, I use them for that project, and then you create new ones for another one. And there's not this kind of common consensus of this is our customer. I think it's really important that everybody understand that who our customers is in the same way, because otherwise it's going to be a challenge. So that at least
you really nailed something there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so many things going on in my head right now. But as for who are your customers, and this is a little derailing as well. But I was just reading recently on LinkedIn. So Eirik Ekan, he's been on the podcast actually. They've done a survey with regards to the election in the US, and where he states quite clearly, and it's also been on public news channel and all, stating that young men in Norway have a tendency to lean towards the Trump way of leading. And all he gets is people saying that because the selection of people, he talked to a statistically significant a number of people from representing Norway as a country, right? So the question is obviously hypothetical because we cannot vote in the US election. But apart from that, we have statistically significant data saying that young men between 19 and 35, I think it is, would, as much as 37% of them would vote for Trump. And then all people are doing are trying to sort of deny it. Instead of digging into why is it like this, they're trying to say no, but the guys that he talked to, so these guys were representing 110 young men, right? So the data is, you cannot argue with the data because it's there, and the selection, and it's good, and it's the likelihood of this being true is way bigger than the likelihood of it not being true. But instead of sort of trying to ask questions why we see these trends, people are more busy trying to defeat and say, no, it's not true, because we just don't want to believe it. So, trying to wind it back to what we were talking about, because I did have a plan with this. If you keep imagining and letting your gut feeling convince you who your customers are, you're not going to be able to impact them with your marketing or your sales strategies or your customer journeys or anything, because you've been creating them based on the wrong things.
Yeah.
And we need to learn this at some point.
Yeah.
We have to start learning.
Yes, I see your energy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So yes, I love it when you say first we need to start by knowing what it is, right?
Yeah.
To be able to
I think
understand.
it's also it's not only the who our customer is, but it's also the customer insight. It's like how, if you look at how companies base their decisions today, it's heavily skewed towards internal assumptions.
Yes.
Like what are what the customer needs are, what are the customer pain points, and there might be some truth to it. There might be limited kind of research that kind of gives you that impression. But as we all know, doing research, it's a really delicate. You really need to be kind of honest to yourself that you actually get the right results by doing that. And I think that is one of the obstacles of customer centricity, is that if you don't really have the real data, but you based on things on your own internal assumptions, you don't really have the clear personas. So what ends up happening is that there's so many problems that you are trying to fix, because when you start looking at it internally, at least that's what I see, is that if you really are customer centric, you actually end up doing less, not more, compared to if you just base things on your own assumptions.
Yeah.
Very good point.
And that is sort of like a risk or a challenge if you want to companies today trying to be customer centric. So
yeah. Before you take the next question, Merete, I just want to say something, because we're talking about that. One of the challenges, of course, is understanding what it actually means to be customer centric. And how do we go about getting more people to understand what it means? And I think now I'm doing a promo for our own podcast.
I was just going to say
listeners, to you listeners who are listening to this podcast. Yeah, well, actually, it's not only please do keep listening, but think about who you think should also be listening to the podcast, because I honestly believe we've had so many fantastic conversations. The things that you're saying today, Esther, I know they ring true when people will listen to it. But the question is, how do we open doors and get more people to actually take the time to listen and want to understand this? And honestly, listeners out there, truly, please do think about who in your organization do you think should be tuning in and listening to the CX pod, and send them a link with your favorite episode and say, you know, I think this is something we should focus on next year. Our strategy, it's time for the strategy. Everybody's working on their strategies for next year. So, okay, that's the promo ended. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
No,
have
but
exactly same problem with journey ops, because journey management is not really it's for the entire organization, and all the events that I have organized. It's easy to get the kind of the believers, but like we need also the kind of skeptics in the room to join, and that's why I'm now running like workshop in a couple of weeks time, in like smaller one. And in that one, I have like from each company, we have the believer, but they have to bring somebody alongside with.
Oh, I love that.
Let's see how
the
that's
skeptic
gonna
as
go.
well, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so bring your skeptics to the CX pod and to Esa's Journey Ups workshop. Then we're doing something.
Yeah. I like that. It's like the good cop and the bad cop, right? So I was just thinking about who is the good cop and the bad cop amongst Joanna and myself, but that's not a conversation we're going to have right now. We have time for about 2 more questions, and I want to do the next one, and then I'll leave the last one for Joanna because I know she loves it when I do that. Also, I do have to apologize on behalf of my daughter. She's coughing a lot in the background, so I'm not sure if you're picking it up, but if you do, she's fine, but she does have a terrible cough. So that's why I'm sort of, the worried mom is a little, she is asleep, but she's coughing. So yeah. Second last question, Esa, and this is a question that means a lot to us as well because of our sponsor. So, we have a Voice of the Customer program vendor as our sponsor for the show. They're called Netigate, and you can check them out at netigate.net if you want to. They have many solutions for how to collect and analyze feedback from your customers and even your employees using AI, and it's such a powerful tool. So not to do all commercialized intro here, but I want to have your take on Voice of the Customer's programs, and especially since you mentioned that for part of your journey and your career, you were sort of doing the insight and analytics part. So what is your take on them? Are they here to stay? How will they work for us in the future? What's your take on this?
But that's also like, what is the definition of voice of the customer? Because what quite often you see that it's all about customer feedback, collecting customer feedback and then analyzing and driving insights from it, and then having the kind of closed loop process to act on those. Whereas if you think about the customer insights and customer research in a broader term, it's more about understanding the jobs to be done, for instance, from the customers. Whereas if you look at like what is the customer feedback, often it's about what are the pain points. And when it comes to kind of surveys and those kind of feedback, I'm always thinking that, is it a one kind of customers who are contacting us to provide this feedback? Do we get the kind of the democratic perspective on it, or is it just a certain type of people who like to give feedback? But having said that, I think especially in B2B setting, the voice of customer can be a really powerful way to improve the customer experience. A couple of years ago, I worked with one large B2B, and they worked with large companies, so they had like 200 customers, and they had this like really well designed kind of voice of customer program where they run like interview based voice of customers, and then they had the kind of closed loop process on it. So they were able to impact on so if somebody had a bad experience, they were actually able to impact that experience for that particular customer. Funny enough, in that same case, they were also thinking that who should own the customer experience, and their initial reaction was sales should own the customer experience because sales owns the customers. But yeah, like voice of customer, it's definitely a great one. Hopefully more and more companies try to make it actionable so that it's not just listening, but it's also about acting on the things that you hear.
Yeah. And I think the whole one thing is a real-time feedback loop, right? That you're able to sort of pick up when it happens, but also the ability to use predictive AI to understand what problems are coming your way but haven't yet sort of surfaced. because then, it's all about the productivity. And we've kept talking about this for many, many episodes as well, that, CX is really about trying to move from being reactive to being proactive when it comes to dealing with your customers' issues, and having the will and using the money or the, whatever resource it is that you need to do it, and understand that it's going to be an investment that will pay back. But you have to believe it and actually dare to take that step. So, and the Voice of the Customer programs can help you with that, I think, in a lot of ways, if used properly.
Yeah. And if I just connect the journey management lens onto it, like what it's really good at is that it kind of pinpoints where you have the kind of the problems. So what we have done like with a couple of customers is that, for instance, like call center calls, instead of like reporting those every month, like these are the issues that companies have, we turn those into kind of monetary metrics, which we integrated into the journeys. So now you could actually see that, okay, these are the journeys that are creating the most pain for us and for our customers, and this is the cost of it. So then it again makes it much more easy decision to make to start fixing those root causes when you have these kind of statistics and metrics there to kind of guide you.
Yeah. And that actually leads really perfectly to the question that I've chosen to be the last question, which is not the usual one I choose, is in what ways has technology transformed the customer journey, and what do you believe the future holds?
Good one.
Yeah, and it's a really kind of topical. The AI is really enter into the customer experience. Well, if I start with first with the personal reflection, what has changed when AI became as part of the kind of customer experience. I'm now using like few different kind of SaaS platforms, and nowadays they have the kind of chatbot there, which you can use to kind of ask any questions. And initially, if you remember the time that they were like really lame, the chatbots, you ask questions, they never would actually answer, and then you had to wait for somebody to pick it up, and you felt that this is just disrespectful for the customer, and it was like not really like good customer experience. But today, like what I realized this week is that my behavior has changed, because like now that I know that it's AI and it is really good in most cases, I'm actually, because I know that it's not a human being who's looking at my questions, so it lowers the kind of barrier of like me asking stupid questions and like and asking a lot of questions. So like I actually use it a lot.
Good point.
Yeah, and I don't feel embarrassed to ask the question because there's no human behind it.
Yeah,
of course, some
really good point.
AI model might kind of classify me as like stupid, but like I don't care about
it.
Next time you do call customer service, they have like a red flag. This guy, beware, he doesn't really get it. So please explain it thoroughly.
Yeah.
No, that's a good.
AI is the one that is really kind of transforming a lot of the touchpoint experiences that we have, and now it's increasingly it's improving, so it's actually surpassing in some phases.
Yeah,
and I think what I like about, I mean, we talked a lot about AI on the show before as well, and I think I've come across as a little bit of a skeptic, right? Because I'm not afraid to say that I do worry a little bit about if we start believing that AI is gonna do all the jobs for us, we're on a mission to fail, right? So I'm skeptic when it comes to that. But then again, I was just asked the question today on LinkedIn by connection that, just a random connection asking me, what do you use AI for and how do you use it? And I started reflecting, and in so many cases where I use AI, it's not a choice that I've made consciously. It's just it's done for me. So, for instance, when we record the podcast here, we use the studio solution from Riverside. Riverside has a lot of AI implemented that helps me and Joanna with a lot of the work that we used to do manually before. So just that little upgrade that we could do when we now sponsor, has enabled us to, automated transcripts. The editing that we can do is so much easier. The AI will edit the episode for us, more or less. It'll give us the magic clips. It will even register like when am I excited. And I see that as a trend. Whenever I sort of get excited, that's a clip of its own, right? So we're using it, and we didn't even choose to, but it's just being implemented to help us. And it's gone from, well, this is AI trying to improve my life, I don't like it, to, oh, look, it's improving my life, and I haven't even thought about it until recently, and I've used it for several weeks. So there is a shift, and I like that way of implementing AI, when it's just done because we're so confident that it's going to remove some friction for us. But again, I do not think it's going to replace human touch and human centricity anytime soon.
Yeah, as long as there are humans who we are interacting with, then humans have a advantage.
Yeah. But it is impressing, and we should probably feel privileged to be able to remember this time, because our kids and grandkids, if we have some one day, they're going to be using this and taking it and probably have found ways to live with it. It's so exciting. Your head could explode.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think AI is so exciting. And one of the things that, but one of the dangers, which is I've started witnessing, is the bias that it's not getting better or it's not any good, because we're thinking about those chatbots that weren't any good previously. And the problem is, if we get stuck in that rut that I don't believe it's not that good, or I always have to do more things and edit. And yes, you do have to do more things. It's not like a use ChatGPT and then it's finished. But I think if you stay there, you're going to be one of the ones. What was that fantastic quote? That AI is not going to take the jobs, but it's the people that know how to use AI that have the skills to use it that will take the jobs. And I think there's something so true about that I think we can't be biased and think that this isn't any good, or it's not going to help me do my work better, because it is getting really quite good, actually.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, we also need to challenge. And I think, this is where it fetches the data from. And because the AI itself is biased, right? We've just seen, take recruitment as an example, how, you discriminate based on age or gender or, it's, so we need to be careful.
It's as biased as us.
It is. And to be honest, it's biased because that's what we taught it to be, and we don't have an excuse. But the AI can say, look, I didn't invent this. I was just fed this. So it's actually a little bit of a mirror, to be honest.
Yeah. But it's a mirror of what's written in online. So what you can, if you use the internet as training material, then it's really polarized. It's like the extreme. That's the worrying part that I have.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that they have kind of figured that out as well. But it is changing. But it's I'm also in the Service Design Network conference, there were a couple of speaks kind of the AI and service design. I was really keen on understand. So what are the kind of leaders in this space saying what the service design is going to be in the future when AI is really in entering? I was really disappointed because everybody's so careful of making any speculations. The basic message is that things are going to change. We don't know what the change is going to be. Just be nimble and adaptive. Nobody's making any kind of speculative yes, this or it might mean this, which I really miss in this space.
And this leads us to the end. And guys, I think, in a way, I want to finish the episode by quoting Lavrans Löwli, who is, service design's dad, in my opinion, at least. He's written so many books about this. And when we talked to him, I think he actually said he was one of the, if not the first, but one of the first people ever to actually finish a master's degree in service design, right? So, but he was talking about it's not that we haven't solved the big problems for the last couple of 10, 20 years. We've improved user experiences drastically. It's just that we've forgotten about the customer experience on top of it, right? So, and I think AI will have a huge effect on user experiences, but to be able to keep providing good customer experiences, we will need more than just AI to do that.
Absolutely.
No, and the name of the sign, thank you so much, Esa, for joining us. And once again, sort of hosting and co-hosting, should we say, the CX pod. It's been a great honor and such a pleasure to have you on the show. And if anybody wants to follow Esa and check out what he's doing, We're going to leave a link to your LinkedIn profile in our show notes. And I think that is it for today. Joanna, I see you're smiling. Is there anything you want to add?
Just smiling. I thought I'd keep my mouth shut this time, but no, absolute pleasure to see you again, Esa, and thank you for a great conversation. And don't forget to promo the pod note. Sorry.
Please now share it.
I'm just picking up on our point earlier.
You can. So when you send a link to somebody you want listening to the CX Pod, you can drop Joanna a copy of that email to hello@thecxpod.no so that she will see that you guys are actually advertising for us. So I think that was it for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening. This is the CX Pod. We are sponsored by Netigate. Have a good one. Thank you for listening to the CX Pod. If you want to reach us, you can always find us on LinkedIn, and please remember to follow us on Spotify and leave a review of what you think.